JD Notae doesn't play, and the Arkansas Razorbacks lose their first conference game to Mississippi State, 81-68. This is Arkansas basketball recap. I'm Daniel Price. That's Jacob Price. Let's get right into it. First of all, super annoying that they changed the time. I didn't know. It kind of made everything a mess for me, but I figured it out. This one's a little bit tough because JD didn't play, and you would have really liked JD to play. It's still, even with him not being there, I think if I'm going to break it all down, I'm going to say this game came down to the fact that we turned the ball over more than they did. And they had, 22 points at the free throw line to our 10. And that was a big, and not because we shot poorly from the free throw line, we didn't, but they took twice as many free throws as we did.
Do you hear that popping?
No.
Sorry. There's somebody like shooting fireworks outside my window.
I heard that. Yeah, I heard that. Yeah, sorry, I can't hear it that bad.
That's crazy for right now. Is that, I guess maybe New Year's is coming up. That's what that is.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll just edit in right here. I guess, there's not a lot of it, but I guess if you were looking at the positive side of that game, you would say, it was a relatively close game until, it wasn't, which was towards the end of the second half. And you'd think if Notae was there, you got a pretty good shot of winning that game, or at least a decent shot. If you're being pessimistic, which I like to do, you'd say there was almost no students there. So the hump was as passive as it's ever going to be. The crowd did a pretty good job, but it was mostly older people, and you could tell it didn't have that thunder that it could. So it would have been nice to steal one during that time. Sorry, there's fireworks going off if you guys can hear them for New Year's, I guess. But then the other negative is the way that they beat us is not the way that I would have thought, which is maybe, they go zone, we can't shoot. They didn't play that well offensively. If you look at their numbers and our numbers, they're almost identical. 3-point shooting percentage is almost identical, even though we took a lot more. Our field goal percentage is almost identical. And, they only scored 30 points in the whole first half.
Yeah, defense wasn't the problem. The defense is fine. That's not a big, high volume 3-point shooting team anyway. But so you didn't think you were going to get torched from the outside. But overall, the defense was fine. We didn't lose that game because we didn't play defense. We lost that game because they had guys that were going to the basket and getting fouled, or getting rebounds and getting fouled, and we didn't. And it sounds simplistic, but and that's one of the things that Notae would have really helped out with is, when you don't have Notae, Devo can do a little bit of that, Likes can do a little bit of that, but you needed to go get to the stripe more. It's just 10 points from the free throw line if the other team's going to get 22. You just need that to be closer. So free throws attempted is a problem, and when you don't get a lot of free throws attempted, it means that you're not going to the basket and getting fouled, right? That's usually what that means. You're not being aggressive with the ball, and you're settling. And I think we did a lot of that.
Like I said, so the bad news would be we got beat basically somewhat on hustle. They did out hustle us. Our defense was good.
I think on just yes, hustle. I think just on plain offensive aggression. I think they were offensively more aggressive than us.
But it was also partially their defense. Our defense was good.
Our defense was good enough to win a game that you show up and play aggressive on offense for, but it wasn't good enough to win a defensive slugfest. At some point you've got to find a way to score.
We looked way more frazzled, way more our defense was good. They missed a lot of shots right around the rim with Tony and Amude and guys and Williams. It was if I was them, I'd have been very frustrated. They could have had another easy 10 to 12 points on layups that they got like 3 or 4 attempts. It was just a lot of hands up there. But the difference, like, so our defense was good on that field, but them, it was like every time we made a pass, our guy would catch it, and it was like he was turning around into the defender, and like there was another guy coming, and like this ball was getting slapped out of their hands. I mean, there was just, they were so on the ball. I mean, they were just a nuisance to whoever had the ball. And it was, we were definitely doing more panicking. It was just, you caught the ball, and next thing you know, there's like 5 hands in there slapping at it, and we're just like, get it out of here. And a lot of those turned into turnovers.
Well, you had guys, Davis come off the bench for them. He played 15 minutes and grabbed 8 rebounds. But the thing that killed you was he came off the bench and grabbed 8 rebounds, but he grabbed 5 offensive rebounds. They had 15 offensive rebounds in the game, which is more than we had. I think we had 12. That's aggressive on offense, where you're going and getting the ball when on the offensive end. They had a lot more shot. They were taking a lot more shots with the opportunity to get fouled. When you're shooting 3-pointers or mid-range jump shots or whatever, those aren't the sort of shots you're going to get fouled on. And if you don't have your best scorer, I mean, the guy who's leading the SEC in scoring, a good idea, I would think, was like, hey, let's make sure we get to the foul line frequently. And I think you could tell that there are those times where they missed JD, where they just needed someone to take a shot, and JD was not there to do it, and somebody else has it. I thought Amude played well. It had to pick up some of the offensive slack, but he's not JD Note.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, ultimately, going back to what we were saying from the last game, I think it did prove to be somewhat true, which is I was not at all surprised that we lost that game.
Right.
I mean, Mississippi State's decent. They were at home. We were without probably our best player. And I feel like coming off that last game where there was just a hodgepodge of trying different rosters out, I think we're going to really struggle over the next 3 games to figure out what we're doing. I mean, who knows what COVID's going to do? That could cause all kinds of more problems, but if players miss games. But even if they don't, I still think, I mean, if everybody's healthy, it's still going to be, the next couple of games is going to be, we're still now trying to figure out what exactly this team is over again, especially when teams start to throw. Everybody's noticed that we don't shoot well. And so whether they play zone or not, they're not respecting they're going to be willing to let us take threes, at least for a while. And we're trying to figure out how we're going to address that.
That makes, doing things like driving to the basket and getting fouled more difficult as well. If you don't feel like you had to play all over guys, and you can give them a little bit of space because you're not terrified of them shooting, that does make the dribble drive more difficult.
Always said that. I mean, I feel like all the old school guys, and I mean, I'm the old school. I mean, I like the old school Bulls and 90s basketball, but I feel like one thing that the old school guys like Charles Barkley and Jordan never give respect to these new players is the way that these new kids shoot, a la Steph Curry, but all of the guys, the way that they shoot. I know you can't hand check anymore, but it is so difficult. The difference between able to be one step off of the guy you're defending when he goes to drive, and you be able, I mean, just the reaction time of being able to step in front of him, and not be on his back hip where he can make that layup when he drives. The difference between being able to just be crouched down and one step off versus you have to be in his jock or they shoot it. You know what I mean? And those guys, it's so much easier to defend, even if you just give people room. The difference between the coach saying what our coach is probably saying, which is when the guy catches the ball, you're chest to chest with him. You know what I mean? Like you're not your hand up in his face versus I feels like what coaches are telling us, like playing against us is we're going to make them prove that they can win a game shooting threes at 28%. And I don't think they can. And so don't crowd them on the line. Don't over commit and let them get around you. And it's so hard to drive the basketball when everyone's playing a step and a half off of you. You just can't get the corner. You can't get around your man. You can't get that guy where you got him on your back shoulder and you're able to make it. Instead, you're getting the ball swatted into the stands because you didn't get the angle. And yeah, I definitely think that the shooting, it affects more ways than just obviously the bucket going, the basket going in. It makes you so much easier to guard, even if you're not playing a zone, even man on man, playing off a guy.
Yeah.
If your coach tells you, make them prove it. And it feels like that is what they're doing. And I mean, I just don't know if we have the personnel to prove it. I know with some of these younger, players that they're putting in, they do appear to have a better shot, but I don't know if it's going to be enough to, so I think Musselman's going to have to figure something out. And
well, and definitely you can't figure it out without JD.
Mhm.
Khalil Robinson got indefinitely suspended for I don't know what. They didn't say. You have JD's out. I think the impression I got was that he'll be back for Vanderbilt. That's the impression I got. We'll see. But Robinson being out. Sorry, not Robinson. Johnson, Camille Johnson. Him being out is a bummer because he played good, and we don't know what's going on there. And then you have JD out. Obviously, those are two huge distractions. I don't know what they changed the time. The whole thing was like a kind of a cluster, I think, for the Razorbacks. That being said, I think that I don't know if you win that game if you have Note, but I like you obviously like the chances a lot more.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, I would say right now, I mean, I'm definitely feeling less optimistic than at 8-0 going to play Oklahoma, but I feel like if Musselman can I feel like the best case scenario or a relatively optimistic sort of what's realistic to expect is Musselman's going to look at all this game tape with the guys he's got, try to figure out how to address the teams not guarding us tough at the 3-point line and making it hard for us to dribble drive, especially when you don't even have really a true point guard. He's going to figure out some way to address those, but it's going to take 3 games. It's going to take 3 to 4 games. We've already got 1 under our belt. And if we lose 1 to 2 of those, if we can win 1 of the next 3 games and then get traction, figure it out. And at this point, I'm like, if we can just win enough games to be in the tournament, maybe by the end of the year, they'll have figured it out and they'll have gelled and the roles will be more solidified and you can make a run in the tournament. But I feel like being number 1 in the SEC or even in the top 3 is probably not realistic at this point, unless they just start to play way better. Because we were talking about this the other day. I mean, there's like 9 teams that are gonna be potential tournament teams in the SEC, and only a couple of dogs. And not all 9 of those teams are going to make it. 3 to 4 of really decent teams are going to get pushed out and be on the outside looking in. And I'm just hoping Arkansas, to me, it does look like Arkansas could be one of those teams if they're not careful. They're definitely, kind of all over the place and definitely floundering a little bit. And my hope is just that they don't, I said this from the beginning, they're going to be in a lot of close games. And it's just going to come down to the final couple of minutes in a bunch of games, whether or not they lose, 6 out of the next 10, or whether or not they only lose 3 out of the next 10. You know what I mean? And
I mean, I think I do think. I mean, from what I can tell, I think the SEC is probably going to get 6. I mean, I've heard some people say that they think they could get 7, even teams in. But in the SEC, out of 14 teams, you still got to be, at the very least, you have to be in the upper half, and that's tough. That's not a given. So they definitely got some things to figure out, and they do need to figure it out quick. I mean, they're definitely the clock is ticking on them figuring out how they're going to do it. Now, I think Musselman's going to figure out how to do it. The question is, the guy's going to implement when he figures out, and they're going to get used to it, and is it going to be cohesive and flowing well enough in time? I think that's the real question.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
As far as player of
that
the
would,
game, I guess it's a Mude.
yeah, it
I
is.
guess I guess that's how we'll go there. I mean, so they don't play again until they have I guess we have the bowl game for the football team on Saturday, and so they're not playing Saturday. They are playing on Tuesday, and so they got also that's probably good too, because I don't know what the timetable is for JD, but if it's Sunday, I'm glad we're not playing Saturday. If it's Monday, I'm glad we're playing Tuesday. So that's probably good. I know Musselman doesn't like that when he has 6 days or whatever, but in this case, it's probably good.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess there's not a lot to say about that. That was
No,
kind of an ugly game.
it was just all kinds of. It's hard to break down something when there's players missing and times being changed and players suspended, and I mean it's
well,
hard to get. It was a hard first conference game to say here's how this team looks when you don't have your whole team there.
Yeah, and like I said, I mean, it was an ugly game. It was just ugly basketball all the way around, with the exception of some good defense. Until like the last 10 minutes, because even Mississippi State, like I said, they didn't tear the house down. I mean, like I said, it was a 1 point game, and the team, we were in the 20s. You know what I mean? It's like it wasn't. I mean, at halftime, so it wasn't. First half was just ugly. It was just hard to watch, and there wasn't really any good basketball until you were a Mississippi State fan in the last 10 minutes, when they really started to just kind of pour it on. But yeah, I mean, not a very fun game to watch all the way around.
No. So. All right, man. Well, I guess we'll be back here next week in 2022 to break down Arkansas and Vanderbilt.
Hopefully with better news.
I think I hope so. If we that's the what, even trying to figure things out, Vanderbilt's one that you'd really like to get.
You better. Yeah, like there's every game, like I said, I think every game is a coin flip in the SEC. So you need to get the ones that are in your favor.
Yep. Agreed. So, especially if they're at home.
Yes, you do not want to lose home teams to weaker opponents. Because like, even that being like last night, you know, and hopefully Mississippi State, you know, I mean, it's hard to know where they'll be at the end of the year, but some things that don't show up in the judgment at the end of the year is, even though it's not a bad loss, depending on what Mississippi State does, things like your best player not being in the game don't always factor in. You know what I mean? It's like one of your players being suspended, or like I don't know. It just,
once you get into SEC play, what is true is that you got to win games at home. And even while you're trying to figure things out, which Razorbacks are, you got to beat Vanderbilt at home. You just have to do that, because road wins are especially tough in the SEC. So you've got to have a very high winning percentage at home. You can't be giving up games at Bud Walton Arena.
You can really only afford to lose to superior opponents.
Yeah,
that at least softens it a little bit. If you know, if a team that's got a better record and is ranked ahead of you comes in and wins a close game, that's not too bad for you. If they come and stomp you, that's bad. If a weaker team comes in and does anything, it's just bad for your resume. You know, those are the kind of things that, if you're on the bubble, are going to get you kicked out of the bubble. You know,
it goes into your bad losses category. Like, well, they lost to Vanderbilt at home. That loss, if they lose to Vanderbilt on Tuesday, that loss will show up on Selection Sunday as the column of things that work against you. It will. You can't lose to Vanderbilt at home. Can't do it. So, all right, man. All right. I'll see you next week.
All right. See you, dude.